Zara's blue skin turned pale as the Galactic Council's judgment echoed through the marble chamber. Her pointed ears drooped as she stared at the floor, unable to meet the eyes of the 12 council members sitting before her. Zara Veltara of the Catherian Empire, the lead counselor announced, his voice carrying across the vast hall. You have been found guilty of violating the Cultural Preservation Act by sharing advanced technology with a primitive species. Your punishment is assignment to Earth for 2 standard years as a cultural observer under human supervision. The young Catherian woman's hands trembled. Earth was known throughout the galaxy as a backwater planet filled with violent, unpredictable creatures called humans. Most civilized species avoided the 3rd planet of the Sol system entirely. Being assigned there was considered the worst possible punishment short of exile. You will be placed under the direct supervision of Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force, the counselor continued. He has volunteered to oversee your rehabilitation. You will live in his household and learn proper galactic protocols through observation of human behavior. Zara finally looked up, confusion replacing her fear. Respectfully, counselor, how can I learn proper protocols from humans? They are barely spacefaring and have no understanding of galactic law. A few council members exchanged glances. The lead counselor's expression remained stern. That, Miss Veltara, is precisely why this assignment will be educational. You will learn humility and proper respect for all species, regardless of their technological advancement. 3 days later, Zara found herself standing outside a modest house on Earth, holding a single travel case containing her few possessions. The gravity felt heavier than her home world, and the air smelled strange, filled with unfamiliar scents of growing things and what humans called fresh air. She had spent the journey reading everything available about human culture, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of actually being here. The door opened before she could knock. A tall human male with dark hair and kind brown eyes smiled at her. He wore a simple green uniform with various patches and insignia that meant nothing to her. You must be Zara, he said in perfect galactic standard, though his accent was distinctly human. I'm Marcus Chen. Welcome to Earth. Zara blinked in surprise. Most humans she had read about could barely speak their own language properly, let alone galactic standard. You speak our language very well for a primitive species, she said, then immediately realized how rude that sounded. Marcus chuckled, seemingly unbothered by her comment. We humans are full of surprises. Come in, let me show you around. The house was smaller than Zara expected, but surprisingly comfortable. Everything was built for human proportions, which meant she had to duck slightly under some door frames. Marcus led her through rooms filled with strange objects, books made of actual paper, photographs printed on physical material, and primitive electronic devices. This will be your room, Marcus said, opening a door to reveal a simple but clean space with a bed, desk, and window overlooking what appeared to be a garden. I've tried to adjust the temperature and humidity to match Catherian preferences as much as possible. Zara set down her case and looked around. The room was plainly furnished, but somehow felt welcoming. You researched my species' environmental needs? Of course. Just because Earth isn't as advanced as your world doesn't mean we don't try to be good hosts. Marcus leaned against the door frame. I know this assignment feels like punishment to you, but I'd like us to get along while you're here. That evening, Marcus prepared something he called dinner, a concept familiar to Zara, but executed differently than on her world. Where Catherian meals were precise nutritional supplements, Marcus actually cooked food using heat and various ingredients. The smells were overwhelming at first, but not unpleasant. So tell me, Marcus said as they sat at a wooden table, what exactly did you do to end up here? Zara picked at her food, still adjusting to the texture and flavors. I gave medical technology to the Zelians. Their people were dying from a plague that we could easily cure. But the Council maintains that primitive species must develop naturally without interference. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. And you disagreed with that policy? How could I not? Zara's voice grew passionate. I watched entire families die when a simple injection could save them. The Council called it cultural contamination, but I called it basic compassion. Sounds reasonable to me, Marcus said quietly. Zara looked up in surprise. But you are human. Surely you cannot understand the complexities of galactic politics. Marcus smiled, but there was something sharp in his eyes. Maybe. Or maybe humans understand more than the galaxy gives us credit for. Over the next few days, Zara began to settle into a routine. Marcus worked during the day at what he called the base, leaving Zara to explore the house and surrounding area. She was amazed by the variety of life on Earth. Plants and animals existed in incredible diversity, far more than the carefully controlled ecosystems of her home world. She also began to notice things about Marcus that didn't fit her understanding of primitive humans. His house contained books on advanced physics, xenobiology, and galactic history. His personal computer, while crude by galactic standards, had been modified with technology she didn't recognize. Most puzzling of all, he seemed to understand cultural references and concepts that should have been completely foreign to his species. One evening, as they sat in his garden watching Earth's single moon rise, Zara finally asked the question that had been bothering her. Marcus, what exactly do you do for the Terran Defense Force? He was quiet for a long moment, watching fireflies blink in the growing darkness. I'm a xenocultural specialist. I study alien societies and help facilitate first contact protocols. But humans have barely made contact with other species. How can you specialize in something your people have so little experience with? Marcus turned to look at her, and in the moonlight his expression was serious. Zara, has it occurred to you that maybe the galaxy doesn't know as much about humans as it thinks it does? Before she could answer, a bright light streaked across the sky, clearly not a natural phenomenon. Marcus pulled out a small device and spoke into it quickly in a language Zara didn't recognize. Within minutes, the light was gone. What was that? Zara asked. Probably just space debris, Marcus said, but his casual tone didn't match the tension in his shoulders. We should go inside. As they walked back to the house, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to both Marcus and humanity than anyone in the galaxy suspected. For the first time since arriving on Earth, the next morning, Zara woke to find Marcus already gone. A note on the kitchen table explained he had been called away on urgent business and would return by evening. She spent the day exploring the nearby human settlement, which Marcus had called a town. The experience proved both fascinating and bewildering. Humans moved through their daily routines with an energy and unpredictability that defied everything she had learned about primitive species. They created art for no practical purpose, engaged in complex social interactions, and showed remarkable adaptability to changing circumstances. At a place called a market, Zara watched humans negotiate prices for goods with a sophistication that reminded her of galactic trade negotiations. When an elderly human woman dropped her packages, 3 strangers immediately stopped to help her gather them. This spontaneous cooperation occurred without any formal social protocols or authority figures directing the behavior. "You're not from around here, are you?" asked a young human male with bright red hair. He was perhaps Marcus's age, with an easy smile and curious green eyes. Zara hesitated. Marcus had given her a cover story about being an exchange student from a distant country, but something about this human's direct gaze made her feel he might see through such deception. I am from very far away, she said carefully. The human laughed. That's what Marcus said when he introduced himself to the town council 5 years ago. Funny thing is, we've had more interesting visitors since he arrived. Almost like he sends out some kind of signal that draws unusual folks to our little corner of nowhere. Before Zara could ask what he meant, her communicator buzzed with an incoming message. She stepped away to read it privately, and her blood ran cold. It was from the Galactic Council, marked urgent and confidential. Subject Zara Veltara. Our monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures from your location. Report immediately on any non-standard activities or technologies you have observed. Council suspicions regarding human capabilities require immediate verification. Zara stared at the message, her mind racing. The Council was watching her assignment more closely than she had realized. More troubling was the phrase, Council suspicions regarding human capabilities. What did they suspect about humans that they hadn't told her? That evening, Marcus returned, looking tired and slightly disheveled. His usually neat uniform was wrinkled, and there were smudges of something that looked like engine grease on his hands. Rough day at work? Zara asked as he cleaned up in the kitchen sink. You could say that. Emergency situation that required some creative problem solving. He dried his hands and looked at her carefully. How was your day in town? Zara hesitated, then decided on honesty. Educational. I received an interesting communication from the council today. Marcus stopped moving. Oh? They mentioned unusual energy signatures and asked me to report on any non-standard technologies I might observe. She watched his reaction carefully. Marcus, what exactly is the Terran Defense Force defending against? For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he sighed and sat down across from her. How much do you know about Earth's first contact with galactic civilization? The standard information. Your species was discovered by a Cytherian exploration vessel about 10 years ago. You were classified as primitive, but potentially useful for manual labor. Limited contact was authorized. Marcus nodded grimly. That's the official story. The real story is quite different. He stood up and walked to a wall panel that Zara had assumed was decorative. When he touched it, the panel slid aside to reveal a sophisticated computer terminal that definitely wasn't human technology. The truth is, humans have been aware of galactic civilization for over 50 years. We've been carefully infiltrating and studying your societies while maintaining the appearance of a primitive species. Zara felt her world shift. That's impossible. The Council would have detected such deception. Would they? Your people are used to dealing with species that develop along predictable paths. Technology first, then space travel, then gradual integration into galactic society. Humans developed differently. Marcus activated the terminal, and holographic displays filled the air between them. We mastered social engineering, psychological manipulation, and adaptive camouflage long before we developed spaceflight. The displays showed data streams, star charts, and what appeared to be detailed intelligence reports on various galactic species. Zara recognized Cytherian governmental structures, Zelian trade networks, and even council security protocols. Every human assigned to interact with galactic species is trained in xenocultural analysis and deep cover operations. We've been mapping your weaknesses, studying your technologies, and preparing for the day when we reveal ourselves as equals rather than subjects. Zara stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward. You've been lying to the entire galaxy. The Council will never accept this deception. The Council doesn't get to decide what humanity becomes, Marcus said quietly. We've watched them condemn species to death in the name of non-interference. We've seen them exploit primitive worlds for resources while claiming benevolent guidance. Humanity refuses to be another client species in their empire of hypocrites. So my assignment here, was it planned? Am I part of some human plot against the Council? Marcus turned off the displays and looked at her with genuine sadness. No, Zara. Your assignment was legitimate. But I volunteered to supervise you because I wanted to meet someone from the galaxy who had shown the same compassion for suffering that humans value. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes, an embarrassing emotional response that Catherians were trained to suppress. You read my file. You know what I did for the Zelians. I know you risked your career and freedom to save lives. I know you chose individual compassion over institutional rules. That's exactly the kind of person I hope to meet. But now you've told me secrets that could destroy human plans for independence. Why would you trust me with such information? Marcus stepped closer, and Zara found herself looking into his eyes without fear. Because I believe you understand that some things are more important than following orders. And because I've spent the last 2 weeks watching you discover that humans aren't the primitive species you expected us to be. Outside, another streak of light crossed the sky. But this time it was clearly artificial and moving in a controlled pattern. Marcus's communicator buzzed urgently. "Council ships," he said after reading the message. 3 vessels just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They're demanding immediate communication with you. Zara's hand shook as she realized the implications. They know. Someone detected your energy signatures and reported back to the Council. They're coming to investigate human capabilities. Marcus moved to another wall panel and began activating various systems. Then it's time for humanity to stop hiding. Marcus, you don't understand. The Council has thousands of ships, weapons that can destroy planets. If they perceive humans as a threat, they'll find out that humanity has been preparing for this confrontation for decades. Marcus turned to face her, and his expression was both determined and sad. I'm sorry, Zara. Your peaceful assignment just became the flashpoint for Galactic War. As if summoned by his words, emergency sirens began wailing across the human settlement. In the distance, Zara could see lights in the sky that definitely weren't stars. The Council fleet had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. What happens now? She whispered. Marcus took her hand gently. Now we find out if the galaxy is big enough for a species that refuses to kneel. The Council fleet hung in Earth's sky like metallic storm clouds, their weapons trained on the planet below. From Marcus's hidden command center, Zara watched as humanity's true nature finally revealed itself to the galaxy. Terran defense grid is fully operational, reported a voice through the communication system. All stealth satellites have dropped concealment. Council forces are expressing considerable surprise at our defensive capabilities. Zara stared at the tactical displays showing Earth's actual defenses. Hidden beneath the planet's surface were weapon systems that rivaled anything in the galactic fleet. Orbital platforms that had masqueraded as space debris were now revealing themselves as sophisticated battle stations. Most shocking of all, human ships were rising from concealed bases across the planet, vessels that incorporated technology from dozens of different species into designs that the Council had never seen before. 50 years of intelligence gathering, Marcus explained as he coordinated the defense. Every species that made contact with Earth shared technology, thinking they were helping primitive humans develop basic tools. They never realized we were reverse engineering everything they showed us and improving upon it. The main communication screen activated, showing the stern face of Council Admiral Thexlar. His reptilian features were set in an expression of cold fury. Human Deceiver Chen, you will surrender immediately and submit to Council authority. Your species' deception constitutes an act of war against galactic civilization. Marcus stepped forward, his posture relaxed despite the weapons pointed at his world. Admiral, humanity has committed no aggressive acts. We've simply chosen to develop on our own terms rather than accept subjugation. You have violated the Primitive Species Protection Act by developing advanced technology without council oversight. You have infiltrated our societies through deception. These are crimes against galactic order. Zara found herself stepping into view of the communication pickup. Admiral Thexelar, I formally request to speak as a witness to human behavior during my assignment. The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he recognized her. Zara Veltara, you will return to council custody immediately. Your testimony will be taken during your court-martial for collaboration with enemy forces. I have collaborated with no one, Zara said firmly. I have observed a species that shows more genuine compassion and wisdom than the Council has demonstrated in centuries. If humanity is guilty of anything, it is refusing to accept a system that condemns entire populations to suffer in the name of non-interference. Marcus looked at her in surprise, but Zara continued before he could speak. Admiral, I formally invoke the right of cultural testimony under galactic law. As the assigned observer, I have the legal authority to present evidence regarding human society before any military action is authorized. Admiral Thexelar's expression showed he knew she was right. Galactic law was specific about observer rights, and even during a crisis, legal protocols had to be followed. You have 5 minutes to present your testimony, Miss Veltara. Then this fleet will do what is necessary to contain the human threat. Zara took a deep breath and activated the ship-wide communication system so her words would reach every vessel in the Council fleet. Honorable Council forces, I have spent 3 weeks among humans, and I have learned that our fundamental assumptions about this species are completely wrong. She gestured toward Marcus and the other humans working around them. We classified them as primitive because they lack certain technologies we consider basic. But they have mastered sciences we never developed. They understand psychology, social dynamics, and adaptive strategy in ways that allowed them to successfully deceive the entire galactic community for 50 years. That proves they are dangerous and deceptive, Admiral Thexelar interrupted. No, Admiral. It proves they are intelligent enough to recognize that first contact with the Council meant automatic subjugation. They chose to study us first, to understand what kind of civilization they were dealing with. And what they found was a galactic government that claims moral authority while allowing preventable suffering throughout the galaxy. Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. I was sent here as punishment for giving medical aid to dying Xelians. The Council called it cultural contamination. But humans have been secretly providing aid to dozens of species for decades, always careful to make it appear as if the helped species developed solutions independently. They have saved millions of lives while respecting cultural autonomy. On the tactical displays, Zara could see that several ships in the Council fleet had powered down their weapons, apparently listening to her words. Furthermore, during my time here, I observed human society and found it more egalitarian and adaptive than our own. They value individual initiative over institutional compliance. They solve problems through innovation rather than rigid adherence to established protocols. And most importantly, they have never once suggested that their way of life should be imposed on other species. Admiral Thexelar's voice was cold. Your observations are irrelevant. They have violated Council law and must face consequences. The Council law that keeps primitive species isolated while their people die of curable diseases. Marcus stepped forward again. The same law that maintains artificial scarcity while advanced species hoard resources. Humanity rejects that law and offers an alternative. You offer nothing but chaos and disorder, the Admiral snapped. We offer partnership, Marcus replied calmly. Equal cooperation between species rather than domination by a self-appointed authority. We've been preparing to propose a new model for galactic civilization, one based on mutual respect and voluntary association rather than forced compliance. Suddenly, new signals appeared on the tactical display. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, dozens of them from various species. "Admiral," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Velthara of the Zelian Federation. We stand with the humans who saved our people when the Council would not." More voices joined in. "Altarian Republic supporting human independence. Centauri Collective requesting to join Human Alliance. Vegan Trade Union offering mutual defense treaty with Earth." Admiral Thexelar stared at the displays showing what had become a standoff rather than a simple enforcement action. "This is madness. The Galactic Order cannot survive if every species decides to ignore Council authority." "The Galactic Order can't survive if it continues to ignore justice and compassion," Zara said quietly. "Admiral, I formally request political asylum with the human government. I wish to study their alternative model for galactic civilization." Marcus looked at her in shock. "Zara, you understand this means you can never return to Council space?" She smiled at him, the first genuinely happy expression she had worn since arriving on Earth. "I understand that I've found something worth fighting for. A species that proved their superiority not through conquest, but through wisdom, compassion, and the courage to stand up for what's right." Admiral Thexelar's fleet maintained their positions for several tense hours, but as more ships arrived to support humanity, it became clear that any attack would result in a galactic civil war. Finally, the Council forces withdrew, but not before the Admiral issued a formal declaration. "This matter is not concluded. The Council will not tolerate this rebellion indefinitely." As the Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus turned to Zara with an expression of wonder and gratitude. "You didn't have to do that. You gave up everything you knew to support us." "I gave up a system that punished me for showing compassion," Zara replied. "In return, I found people who value the same things I do. And I found—" She hesitated, feeling her blue skin darken with a blush. "I found someone who makes me want to build something better than what came before." Marcus smiled and took her hands in his. "So what happens now? You're officially a refugee on a planet that just declared independence from galactic civilization." Zara laughed, a sound that was becoming more natural each day. "Now we prove that cooperation works better than domination. We build alliances with species who want freedom rather than subjects. And we show the galaxy that there's a better way forward." 6 months later, as Earth became the center of a growing alliance of independent worlds, Marcus and Zara stood in the same garden where they had first begun to understand each other. The Terran Galactic Cooperative had grown to include over 30 species, all committed to voluntary association and mutual aid. "Do you ever regret your decision?" Marcus asked as they watched ships from a dozen worlds coming and going from Earth's orbital stations. Zara leaned against him, marveling at how natural it felt to find comfort in his presence. "The Council meant my assignment to you as punishment. Instead, it became the beginning of everything I never knew I wanted. A rebellion against galactic authority? A partnership with someone who sees the universe the way I do." She turned to face him. "Someone who believes that doing the right thing is more important than following orders." Marcus kissed her gently, and Zara reflected on how completely her life had changed. She had arrived on Earth as a prisoner serving out a sentence. She was staying as a founding member of a new kind of galactic civilization, working alongside the human who had become her partner in every sense of the word. The Council had intended her assignment as punishment, but fate had other plans. Sometimes the best things in life came disguised as the worst, and sometimes the greatest love stories began with the most unlikely circumstances. As ships from across the galaxy arrived to join their growing alliance, Zara knew that her true adventure was just beginning, wondered if her punishment might actually turn into something far more interesting than she had ever imagined.